And man, we have a great show for y'all today. Do me a huge favor, make sure you go like and share and subscribe to our YouTube page right down here below. And today we have a great topic. It is about marriage. So we are going back on the relationship side. And a really great topic is, should a woman take a man's last name when they get married? Very interesting. I heard this actually on social media about a week ago, and the conversation was really great. Some people got a little upset with me on my response, but hey, it is what it is. We all have our own opinion, I guess, right?
I guess we do.
And you have yours.
I guess I can say I have a range of opinions.
And that's fine.
I don't think everybody needs to take everybody's name.
Okay, explain that part. Like everybody, what do you mean?
So I was married at one point in time, and I did not take my husband's name. I think my reasoning was more of like just immaturity at the time. I was like kind of like, oh, I want to keep my name just because I wanted to. But then I started to hear a lot of different things. Like I have a friend who's a doctor, and she didn't want to change her name because if she changed her name when she got married, it would have been like her name, her license, her practice, all these other things that had to change because professionally that was separate and apart from their marriage. So professionally, she was like, I would have to do this and this and that, and it was just the work involved. Mm-hmm. But now I'm like, what if you're like the last woman in your family with that name? Like, what if you know, that's your family.
Well, what does it have to do with you? You're not a boy, so it's not like you're gonna pass it down to another child.
What if you just want to keep your name though? What if you want to keep your name? That's your name. That's your family name. Why do I have to take yours?
So,
what's the significance? Because you're looking at it like, yes, it should happen. Why should it?
Because it's unity. It shows unity. So.
Am I any less a partner because I don't have your name?
I'm not saying you're less of a partner physically, but I think, you know, as a unity, it's showing that we're together. That speaks a lot. You know, when you walk in, they say, this is Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
So
versus coming and say, hey, this is Mr. Smith and this is Mrs. Johnson. Like,
so
are they married? Yeah, they're married.
I need your name to be your wife.
No. But what it is, when you're thinking about unity, people...
Do I need your name to be a good wife?
No.
Do I need your name for us to be a unified couple?
Yes.
Why?
Because it shows unity.
It has nothing. Who am I showing?
Everything that has a unity-based thing to it is under the same name.
Who am I showing?
A company can't have.
The only person I need to show that I'm your wife to and show that we are unified is my husband. So why do I have to show anybody just by being Mrs. Smith?
Okay, so let's kind of break it back down a little bit. Because I see where this is going. So I'm going to have to give you with the facts. So we all understand marriage is an institution that we join in together. And I hate to say it's an institution, but it is what it is. The whole purpose of marriage originally, if you do your research, is that a man and a female, or a man and a woman gets together. The man takes the woman in because in the biblical days, far, far back before us, women could not own land, they could not operate a business, they couldn't operate with money. So they needed a man to be able to come in and operate as an agent for the family. So the woman could not take the father's farm, cattle, none of that stuff. They couldn't operate like that. So in order for her to operate through the husband, she had to become the wife, and now you're the wife of blah, 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 and that is his entitlement. That's the title for you. So as time went on, the last name was so significant, the woman takes the man's last name, not saying it's like property, but it's the unity between the two.
Our same property.
You're unifying to me. So yeah, we operate together underneath this unit. Now, marriage should and is actually a business. When you have to get a license to operate anything, you also have to get a license to get married. So it's like having a business. We're actually in the gallery right now, and it has a business name, and on the business license, there's one name. There's not multiple names. Now, can you act underneath the business as an agent? Absolutely, but you only can act underneath the business as an agent with the business name, not as a separate entity. So in a marriage, yes, you can keep your last name that you had when you was your maiden name, right? But it shows unity when you have the husband's name. Hope that cleared it up for you.
I'm not buying any of this bull.
You can look it up for yourself.
I don't have to look it up. I know the research on marriage.
So
marriage was created as a business on purpose. It was created so people could put money back into taxes, so we could charge you to get married. Because prior to that, there was no such thing. It was purely biblically based when it came to being marriage, unified. I marry you, we love each other, end of story. I swear before God that we would be together until we die and whatever. And that was it. All of a sudden, it became tied into taxes, tied into businesses, tied into everything else as a way for the community to make money. It became economically based rather than...
It was always that way. From the beginning.
No, because it wasn't always go get a license for it.
No, but see, the thing is, when you pay a dowry, that was kind of like we solidified this marriage when you pay the dowry to the parents. So, in essence, I'm sorry to say it is kind of like I own you now. Like, it's a property thing, and so with your property has your name.
Contextually speaking, it is no longer that way. I don't need a husband to go get a business.
Right.
I don't need a husband to go get land.
Right.
I don't need a husband to do anything
right.
now.
In this time where we are now.
Exactly. So, which also means I don't need a husband's name to do any of those things. So why should I have to do that?
So why should you get married? If you don't need a husband for any of this stuff, why do we even still get married? What's the point of marriage?
Because you love somebody and you want to be with them for the rest of your life. And that's your way of demonstrating that you are a couple. That's purely community based. That has nothing to do.
It's the same thing with the name. It's the same situation with the name. If we say we need to get married to show everyone that we're together.
I'm not showing anybody but that person. That's me. For me, that would be me demonstrating to that person, I want to be with you for the rest of my life. When I got married the first time, we got married in front of only my parents and my siblings and his parents and his siblings. We did not have some big, ridiculous demonstration of who we were getting married in front of. We got to show the world all this BS. Like, I didn't do that because I never felt like that was completely necessary. Mm-hmm. I feel the necessity to like celebrate with friends and family that you have found somebody that you want to be with for the rest of your life or that you're happy, absolutely. But I do not feel like it's necessary to demonstrate something to the world or to show somebody anything. Like, I don't have anything to prove to anybody by getting married or being with somebody or taking on a name or taking on a business or any of that nonsense.
So you could be with someone without having to marry them for the rest of your life. Like, you can literally just be in a relationship. Y'all move in together, own property together, and don't have to get married. Mm-hmm. So, then to your point, marriage is non and void. Like, you don't need to get married. Throw that whole thing out the window because honestly, if you look at it, it is actually a scam to some people. You have to get a license to get married, and now it's like you said, to file you for taxes, tax purposes. And then now we're talking about, well, I don't need to take his last name, so I don't need to take your last name. I don't want to have to pay taxes with you or file taxes together. I don't want to have to be feeling like I'm tied to you to operate in this, underneath a particular system. So what's the point and the purpose of being married?
Well, you're making it an ugly thing, as if somebody's saying like, I don't want to be tied to you or I don't want to do anything that has to do with you. And it's not that. It's saying that I'm acknowledging the fact that back in the day, people used to do it for that purpose. People used to say, this is an advantage I have by being married. And what I'm saying now is that it is not an advantage or disadvantage. If I choose to be with somebody, I choose to be with them because I love them and I respect them and I want to be with them. It has nothing to do with me gaining something or them gaining something from being in a marriage, because those things are available to both of us, living separate and apart or being married. So I feel like then it was a ploy to be with somebody, to say like, oh, me and you are a good match and I like you and you like me, but I get to do all these things because I'm married. And now I don't have to do any of those things to be with somebody. I can do them all on my own and I can still be with you just to actually be with you. So no man that I choose to be with will ever have to look at me and go, oh, she's with me so she can do X, Y, Z. Or she's with me because by being with me, she gets the advantage of having whatever. I'm with you solely because I want to be with you and I love you and I respect you and I want to share my life with you, and for no other reason.
Yeah, I respect that. So let me ask, you're together, you're married, you didn't take the husband's last name. You have children. What last name do your children get?
My children have their father's last name.
Why?
Because that's what he wanted.
You know what I'm saying? Say outside of that situation with you. This is for anyone right now that's watching. You get married to a guy, you keep your last name, you have children. What last name do your children get?
I think that's up to the family.
Really?
Yeah, I think everybody has their own opinion. Like, my daughter has her father's last name. We got into the conversation of, like, what her name was going to be. And he chose her name because that's the name he wanted, and I wasn't willing to fight with it. It was what it was. Would I have preferred that she had mine? Absolutely. Or a hyphenated name? Sure. But
Look, I respect anyone's decision on that whole situation. I just honestly find it to be we're being more difficult. There's things that we do as a cultural thing and in society, and I think once lines start to get blurred, like we get away from tradition, and some things you have to get away from tradition. But when you get so far away from tradition and the lines get super blurred, there's no direction with certain things, I think that's where it gets kind of muddy. So when you get married, when you become married or get married to someone, the normal thing is, you take on a husband's last name, the children has the husband's last name, we build a family and a unit together under this name, right? And it's become one. It's in one unit. It's not, even though you're two separate people, it shouldn't be operated or looked at as two separate people. And like I said, you walked in the room, that's Mr. Smith, and that's his wife, Mrs. Johnson. And people are very confused by it, like, well, why didn't, and that will always be a question that a woman have to answer to, and some don't care. But think about it, through your whole life, you can be married to somebody 20, 30 years, and then like every time you introduce them, this is my wife, Miss Johnson, but aren't you Mr. Smith? Yeah, then you have to always constantly explain it. Now, some people don't care about society when it comes to that, but it becomes so like disconnected, and like you guys did not want to be joined together or recognized as a joint together. And then that goes back to the question of should you wear your ring? Some people may say, well, no, I don't have to wear a ring to know I'm married. It's the same thing with the last name. I don't have to have his last name to know I'm married.
you don't.
So where does that show of unity at?
Who am I trying to prove something to?
Once again,
If somebody says, are you married? Yes, I'm married.
But I don't see the name, I don't see the ring. Your last name's the same ever since I knew you from high
I
school.
don't have to prove it to you or anybody else.
I understand that, but it's a sign. You say you respect the man, right? I respect you on what you do.
Absolutely.
I think out of respect.
And if my husband says, Amanda, it means a whole lot to me that you change your last name. Then that's a conversation you have to have. Or Amanda, it would mean a whole lot to me if you wore your ring every single day, because I want you to wear your ring every single day. I want people to know that you are married, and I feel like that's a demonstration of you saying you value our marriage, and it's a demonstration of you being someone's wife. I want you to wear it every day. Okay, fine, I will wear it every day. That it's not to say that I'm totally against wearing something every day. I'm not totally, like, that doesn't make me some submersive, like, that's not what I'm doing. But what I'm saying is, I don't feel like personally for me, I have to walk around with some sign or demonstration or something saying this is my way of making myself married by changing my name or wearing a ring or putting a stamp on my forehead or wearing a dot between my eyes or whatever it is that people do to demonstrate that they are taken. I don't feel like I have to do that. If I am with somebody and it's somebody that I love and that I respect and I am with, something about me is going to say I am in love with this person. I'm committed to this relationship. And if somebody were to approach me and say, are you in a relationship? Yes, absolutely. Are you married? Yes, I am. End of story. So, and if you, like, first of all, I would never, but who in their right mind would approach me and say, why don't you have his last name? Well, it's none of your damn business.
Right. What I'm saying is, so you said something that was very interesting. So, if somebody asked me if I was married, yes. And once again, it's symbolic and unity. If you're associated with something that has a unity base to it, they shouldn't have to ask you. They should automatically can recognize it. So having a ring, they can recognize that you're married. And if you're
me saying my name is Mrs. Smith is not going to be a demonstration of me being married, because they don't know if that's my maiden name or my married name.
Well, it depends on how you use it, because if you say Mrs. Smith or Ms. Smith, it's a complete difference of introduction. So
what if I said my name is Amanda Smith?
Okay, then they can ask, are you married? Because if you're not introduced it as Mrs. Smith. So that's what I'm saying. It's we live in a society. I know a lot of times we say we don't care about what society thinks and how society feels about certain things. I don't have to explain myself to you. You know, you don't, but you do. We have to at some point, because we live in a society where people are going to constantly have that conversation about it, and they're going to ask, and we're going to have to deal with it as it comes up. But I think demonstrating to the person that you're with that, yes, I'm with you, I love you, that's the only thing that matters. It should be. But let's be honest. You know, we live in a society where these things are slightly important. So one thing I'm going to kind of like dial into why I think the name is important as well. Certain family names hold weight. It gives you access to certain things. Vanderbilts. If you was an actual Vanderbilt, like you were marrying a Vanderbilt or a Rockefeller, you might want to take that last name because it gives you access. But see, once again, we think about it like the benefit of having that name, because it's not a popular name or an accessible name like that. People say, well, it's not important if your name is Smith. Well, if it was Rockefeller, I guarantee you'll take the last name, because it opens up opportunities for you, because it shows what? Unity and being a part of something
that also
that
depends on the person.
So,
but you also have those people who get married to people and say, like, I don't want to gain something just because I have somebody's name.
I would say 99.7% of people, if you had the opportunity to become a Rockefeller or a Vanderbilt,
that's your opinion.
You would.
That's your opinion.
Because you wouldn't even be next to a Rockefeller or Vanderbilt if you wasn't. If that wasn't an attraction for you to do. If you're just saying, oh, I just love him, I like him, yeah, that's great, but we all really know that there's a level of prestige that comes with that you're going to take on that name. It's a given. And I'm not saying that you should be hunting for that. I just think that for me, it's always showing a point of unity. I don't know if it's just how I was raised or what. Hyphenation is great. So tidbit, my mom kept her maiden name. She was married to my father. They divorced and she got married to my stepfather. She kept her maiden name, her previous marriage name, and her current married name to the day that she died. That was a lot of baggage to carry, but to her it was important. See, and as you say that, it's like, oh man, that's a lot. But when people say, well, just hyphenate it, to what point? Like, where do the lines stop and say, well, we might not want to carry all those names, because what are you attached to? What part is that? You know, all of it's me. My maiden name is me, you know, my previous married name is me, and my current married name is me. And I'm like, okay, but at what point do we dial in and say, hey, I'm unified with this particular person, and that's it? Mm-hmm. It's just, I think that when we start the institution of marriage, so I had some information that I wanted to share. Marriage actually did not become legal until 1913. The government deemed it, you have to have you have to have a license in order to be married, and obviously that's for tax purposes and things like that. So it's fairly new, the institution of marriage, and where we are now. Years ago, obviously during biblical time, ancient times or whatever, when they got married, it was a whole paying a dowry to the family. To your point, hey, I like you too. Mm-hmm. You got some cows I want. You want to get married? Sure, that works. And my dad's gonna kick me out the house, and he can't keep feeding all of us. Cool, and you come with me. And until the government kicked in and said in 1913, women are starting to get more of the rights. And women can operate without having a husband to operate for them. And I love that part of it because it does give you that independency and still have the unity between a man and a woman.
You just make up a word.
That's what I said.
Independency. Is that a word?
I don't know.
Independency.
What independence? Hey, I like making up words. Independence. And so it gives the woman independence, and they can operate as separate but still a unit. And I think that's how marriage should be looked at. It's not like, oh, you're taking something from me because I took your name and that discredit my family. I don't think that's the case. You're building something together, and if you're going to build something together, I feel it should operate underneath the same name. So I still pose this question because somebody asked me this too. Could the man take the woman's last name?
If he wants to.
How would you feel about that? If your husband or to-be husband says, I would just take care of that last name versus mine.
I mean, like I said, I'm indifferent. So for me, I'm not posing an opinion on what other people do. You know, like you do what works for you in your marriage, I will do what works for me in mine, and my relationship and your relationship. Like everybody has a separate relationship, everybody has their own opinion, and even to the point of like one relationship that I have may not be like the next. Excuse me. Some people are, with somebody who that's really important to them, and they're very free-spirited, and somebody might tell me, if I was that way, Amanda, you taking my name is very important to me. Okay, well, then I'll take your name. Or the next person may say, I don't really care one way or the other, and I may say, like, I really want to keep my name. Okay, well, then you keep your name, and it's not a big deal. I think it's more important to focus on the strength of that marriage and the two individuals that are involved in building that relationship and what's important to them. If my identity and my family lineage and those things are important to me and I really want to keep my name and he's fine with it, great. If it causes a problem in my marriage, then maybe it's not such a good idea. But it depends on that person too. Some people may say, I don't care one way or the other, so keep your name if you want to. Okay, fine. It really just depends on that relationship. And I don't care what other people think about my relationship. If that's what works for me and that person, then that's what works for me and that person. If they're comfortable with it and it's not something that makes them feel insecure or it's not something that poses a problem within that relationship, great, you do what works for you and I will do what works for me. I can't see it from my house, so why should it bother me, or why should I question the strength of your relationship based upon whether or not you take somebody's name or how you guys frame whatever it is that you have going on, who's taking what name, what the kid's name is. Like, it's none of my business. It's not my concern. That's not what I'm doing in my house, and that may not be what works for me, but if it works for you, fantastic. And that's why these topics are like more difficult for me because some people might say like, oh, you have this like wishy-washy opinion, or you're like treading somewhere in the middle of some gray area, and I'm really not. I'm just saying like, I may not be gay, I may not be a lesbian, I may not be a member of this group or that group, but if that's what's working for you, if that's how you live your life and that's what you choose to do and that's what makes you happy, great. Yeah. Because if we're all walking around doing things because that's more traditional, or doing things because that's what works for everybody, or doing things because that's what this cookie cutter society is expecting you to do, then we're living up to everybody else's expectations and we're not making ourselves happy. And then you live in this world of like, oh, am I doing the right thing by XYZ? And I don't want to live like that. So if it's not something that I feel comfortable with, I'm not going to do it. And if it's not something that my partner feels comfortable with, I'm not going to make him do it.
Right. I think marriage is, like, to your point, it's really what works for you. I think for me and I'll stand on my opinion, but I really do believe the name is important. It's how we are just operating as a unit. If we made a decision to be together and have start a family and do all this stuff together. I think the name is significant. One society looks at it one way, but I think for us it's just a constant reminder of we are a unit. You're not that separate person when I met you. You're still not Miss Johnson or Pamela Johnson. You're now my wife, and I'm now your husband. And the name shows that unity between us. And I think maybe sometimes women that keep their maiden name is scared to lose their identity. I don't think you lose your identity of who you are. A lot of people say, well, I keep it because people can find me better. They know how to find me, Pamela Johnson. And if it's a Pamela Johnson watching, I'm not talking about you, I'm just using the name. But Pamela Johnson, they can find me better on social media. They can find me and they recognize me for this or whatever. To your point, I'm a doctor, whatever. And to that point, it's almost saying that you're losing your identity to society. We just talked about society acceptance. This is exactly what it is. So if we're on one side and say, well, I'm not worried about what society feels, this is how I feel. But you are kind of. It can still be a personal decision to keep your last name. But a lot of people keep it for the purpose of, well, that's what people know me by. Mm-hmm. Because I've been Dr. Rodriguez since, I started my practice. And if I change that, the society that I'm in that knows me by that name may get confused. And so if you're feeling that you're going to lose your identity, I can respect that. I just stand on the point of, okay, then hyphenate it. Let people know. If you use it as a business purpose, great. But legally on paper, you are Miss Whomever, right? You gotta think people like Kim Kardashian. She's Kim Kardashian West. Jada Pinkett Smith. Because they know that their names hold weight. People know how to find you through that name. And they had to get people used to the hyphenated name too. And it says Kim Kardashian. Still say Kim Kardashian. They don't go Kim Kardashian West. They've been working that in. Same thing with Jada Pinkett Smith. They was working that in for years. Mm-hmm. Jada Pinkett is Jada Pinkett, but Jada Pinkett Smith is the name. So I just think that it all depends on how it works for you, where you are in your life. If you're just the normal person, I would say, and I hate to say it like that, but if you're not in a public eye or you're not a huge person when it comes to like I say, a lawyer, a doctor, something that you have to practice that people know. Then I don't know, it's something to consider. But to your point, if it works for you and the person that you're in love with and y'all form a family, he doesn't care one way or the other, great. I'm just a whole hard body on taking the name. If I'm going to commit down to you, we need to show this a sign of good faith and take my name, because you make me buy that big ass ring for you. I at least need to have a name on it. See, and that's another thing too. Shout out to Beyonce, by the way. She had y'all all hyped up, put a ring on it, right? And I see y'all in the clubs, put a ring on it, doing the whole dance. If you ask me to put a ring on it, put the name on it. If you want me to put a ring on it, put the name on it. If that's so important to you, if you think it's so important to get a ring, it should be as important to put the name.
Again, an opinion.
Do every woman want a ring? Do every woman want a ring?
I don't know.
Did you want one?
I know I didn't wear one, actually.
But did you get one?
Did you see what happened?
You got a tattoo?
I got a tattoo.
And that's symbolic to the...
When I got married.
But did you get a ring?
I had one, yes. I had one because he purchased one. I also purchased one.
But I'm saying, did you want one?
I didn't ask for one, but it is traditional, so he bought one. But this wasn't a conversation. I took it when he gave it to me, just as he took it when I gave it to him. Which,
so when he proposed to you,
they both had diamonds, right? Just so you know.
Yeah.
And it wasn't some big planned wedding, so we didn't have like these big rocks prior to getting married.
Right.
Like we just had a small wedding, and when we had our wedding, we put rings on each other. Prior to that, when we decided we were going to be committed, we went and got tattoos together.
I think the tattoo is way heavier than a ring. That's like super permanent. And
I didn't get anybody's name on it. I just got a heart there, like symbolizing that I'm committed to someone. And I didn't have to do anything else. And this was by choice. This was a conversation that we had. And I didn't say like, oh, I'm going to go put Joe Smith on my hand, or I'm going to make sure I tattoo your name across my throat so everybody that meets me knows that I'm married to you. Yeah. Or it just seems like it's a demonstration for other people. And to your point, like you were talking about, like businesses or, you know, whatever, like I'm not changing my name because I'm committed to this name or this business or this title or whatever, or the comfort in just having that name on a continuous basis or an identity thing. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I just think it solely depends on that person. Like, yeah, there could be things related to like business and things like that, and people finding people, or, you know, if I have a business and my name is Amanda Smith on that business and I decide I want to change my name to Amanda Johnson because I got married to Mr. Johnson, well, now I'm sacrificing income on my business, people finding me, people looking me up because I wanted to change my name to Johnson. And that's a financial sacrifice for my business as well. So those are all things that are taken into account, I think, when people change their names. And it's not a matter of like, do you like or do you dislike, or do you feel like we're unified or not unified because I took your name or didn't take your name. There are other things to be considered when you do things like that. So I'm not adamantly against it. I'm just saying you have to take into account what you have on your plate and how it applies to what's going on in your life and that person's life, and how it will affect whatever you two are bringing to the table. If you don't have anything to lose and it's something you want to do, fantastic. But if you do, that's something that has to be taken into account. And it just seems like it's more of a like, oh, you're my property, take my name because we're married.
Once again, it goes back to, for me, it's tradition's not bad. Beyond what people say, tradition is not a bad thing.
Nobody's saying it's bad.
No,
it's just saying that you don't have to uphold every single
tradition
tradition because that's what it is.
What I'm saying, I'm saying that to lead into the next thing. Tradition is not bad when it's not something that's suppressive to a person. And once we start getting further and further away, our society has been so liberal lately for the last 20, 30 years that we're getting so far away from things that are traditionalized, are good things, I think. So, just whatever you want to do. I mean, however you feel, whatever you like. And there's no one stopping to say, hey, you know, this is something that we should be really, you know, holding tight to our traditions. You have other countries. The tradition is the tradition. Tradition has been that way for eons, right? And it works. But we're so liberal now. I'm trying to imagine where we will be in the next 30 years if we take the standpoint of, do whatever you want to do. If you get married, I'll take the last name, and then, you know, y'all really probably don't have to live in the same house if y'all want to. It's like, what are we doing?
There are people who are married that don't live in the same house.
But I understand that, but that's not traditionally a thing to do, and it's not commonplace. Does it happen? Yeah, but it's not commonplace. But once things become more common, that's where I'm not a bigot. I'm not like old or anything. I just really believe in it has to be a line somewhere. Someone has to say, look, marriage is this. You can do whatever you want to do within that operation. However, normally what you would do where you married, this is where these lines would be, right? If you go get married, you have to go get a marriage license. If we're going to operate in the standpoint of you don't have to take the last name and we don't have to wear rings, don't go get a business license. Just live together and say, that's my wife, that's my husband. We file taxes separately.
People do that all the time.
Then just do that. But don't go through the whole process of marriage and expecting the same conditions of marriage. You got to think that people committed into that marriage.
There are plenty of people who live together for a long amount of time, and there's this thing called common law marriage, and you don't have to do anything. You just have to be together.
Yeah. But
then you're married.
Exactly. But you still get treated like a married couple. You still can file joint taxes.
Yeah, you can, but it's based solely upon the fact that you guys live together. It has nothing to do with names, rings, any of that.
But that's why I said don't go through the same motions. Then you want to do it that way. Don't get the marriage license. Don't try to take the last name. Don't ask me for a ring.
But that's
don't do none
your
of that.
box. That means
no, it's not. It's not just a box. It's, if you think about it, it's the logical thing. Like
that's
you can't.
Your logical thing.
No,
that doesn't work for everybody.
It's simple thought. If you telling me that you want to be married to me, however, you don't want to exchange name, you don't want to give me a name, you don't want to exchange
your expectation, though, somebody else may not feel that.
It's not an expectation.
Somebody else may not need all of that. somebody else may not even want all of that.
Then don't do it. That's what I'm saying. Don't do all that and just let the common law happen, and then that's fine. But don't go out here and say, we're going to get the marriage license, we're going to get the rings, but I'm not going to take the last name, we're not operating like that.
But why is that that's your expectation of what it should and shouldn't be? Like, why does it have to be like that? That may be what works for you. You get married, you want somebody to take your name, you want them to wear a ring, you want them to do businesses as Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so.
Right.
But just because that's what works for you and that's what you believe in doesn't mean that everyone has to operate like that.
I don't think that's just what I believe in. I just think that's what it is. There's certain things that is just what it is, and then there's things that where you have the gray area, right? So you have I call it cheating the system.
That's what
if you got people, I'm married, right? So went through the whole process. The wedding, the marriage license, changing the rings, the last name got changed, went through the whole process. So you got people that actually doing the traditional way of marriage. Then you got the other people that operate in the gray area of marriage and say, well, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that, you don't have to change this, but I'm still operating just like them. Like, no, you're not operating like me. You can't operate like me because you didn't do the exact same thing that I did, but you want to be treated and recognized as a married couple like me. That's not that. If you think about it logically, it's not. You can't operate like me because we didn't go through the same process. And I think that's what I'm saying. With society now, we allow people to, we give people awards even if they didn't win. Like, what the hell are we doing? And I think the same thing with marriage. Don't try to operate in the same capacity as the people that did it the traditional way.
So everyone that gets married has to do it the way you do it, because if they're not doing it the way you do it, then they're not right.
No, I'm saying is don't try to be like, oh, I'm married like you. You're not married like me. Because you did not go through the same process.
Who walks around saying that? People walk around saying that?
No, but I'm saying is you want, all right, to the point what I'm saying is this, so I can get a clarification. If two people say, we just said, you don't have to go down there and get married, you live together, common law marriage, blah, 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 blah. But then I walk in a room and this guy say, hey, this is my wife. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great, man. But I'm recognizing that they don't wear rings. Except for last names. Like, when did y'all get married? Oh, well, we actually we've been living together for 20 years. So, I just think that's a long-term relationship, like a roommate status thing. To me, I'm not looking at it as
my relationship of living with somebody for 20 years and doing the same kind of things that you and your wife do discredits mine because I didn't go to the courthouse and get a license. But because I put in 20 years of work in this relationship, it's not as relevant as you get.
It's not going to hold the same weight. Not for me. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to break it down in a more simple way, business-wise. It's the guy that actually has a store to sell clothes, and then it's the guy that's been selling clothes out of his trunk for 20 years. There's a huge difference. You didn't go through the same process. You're doing similar things, but it's not the same, and you want to be recognized the same way. To me, I just can't say, oh yeah, no, we're not the same. It looks the same, it feels the same, but it's not. And I'm not discrediting what you're doing. I'm not saying no, it's not.
Oh, you are discrediting.
I'm not discrediting. I'm not saying like, oh.
You're saying that their relationship of 20 years of marriage versus your relationship, because theirs is not a real marriage according to you, that it's not as relevant as the person who just went to the courthouse to get a marriage license. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying.
So me paying $30 for a marriage license makes mine just as relevant as somebody who's been married 20 years, even if I've been already putting in work for 20 years.
Absolutely. So once again, go back to the same point I was making. You do the same type of business. The difference between me and you, I'm a legitimate business.
So
I got a license,
I
pay my taxes, I operate as a business. You just do it on the side and you want me to recognize it as an actual thing. And I'm like, no, I did it the way that you're supposed to do it. So, I'm just saying. It's legitimately that way. You got the people that commit all the way in, and then you got the ones that kind of dance around in a circle because they're like, I can leave anytime. The difference between the person that got marriage license and the one that did common law, if I leave, I gotta get a divorce. You leave, you can walk out the door. That's why I say
common law, you cannot leave.
Common law, you can just dip. We don't have to do nothing in a court of law to separate anything. You take yours, I take mine, and I'm gone. If I leave and I'm married, I have to go get a lawyer. You get a lawyer. That's what I'm saying. I can't look at yours and mine's the same because you can escape faster than I can. You can leave, and I have to sit here, and then we have to either make it work or we have to get other people involved to get this dissolved. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that the love portion, the building portion is not the same. I'm just saying the actual institution of what we're doing is not the same.
And all I'm saying is I don't want anybody trapped with me just because we got a piece of paper. If you want to go,
you know what it is?
Carry on.
It's the committed, like you're committed in.
If I'm committed, I can be committed without going to the courthouse and getting a piece of paper.
So do you agree if common law marriage, which one works best? The common law marriage, where if things fall apart, you just go your way and I go mine, or then we get a piece of paper and then we have to actually go to a lawyer and get things figured out?
I'm not going to say what works for other people. I'm not going to sit here and say what makes something more relevant because that's not my business.
But do they both hold the same weight?
I don't know. They might hold a lot of weight for somebody who, I would imagine if you walked a couple in here who's been together for 20 years and they're not legally married, they're not going to stand next to me and say, your 1 year of marriage is equal to my 20 years of putting in work over here just because I don't have a piece of paper. Not at all. And I wouldn't argue that point because it's not my place to say what makes your relationship relevant to everybody else. If your relationship is relevant to you, who am I to say it's not? And that's what you're doing.
No, what I'm saying is,
that is
your relationship of 20 years, full committed with license and operating in the system as a married couple. You can be married for 1 year. That couple could have been together for 20 years without any license. It does not equate to your 1 year of a full committed. Why? I'm not discounting your actual relationship, the time they are putting together the bill. I'm just saying that there's legitimate business and then there's dance around the circle business. So yes, I would say that's great that y'all been together for 20 years and made it work, but you can give me all the advice in the world, but when it comes down to it at the end of the day, it's not equal to what marriage really is supposed to be in our society. We went in fully committed in. We said, look, we got the business license, we changed name, we did everything inside that system. You found a way to operate in the system without being in the system, and that may work for you. But the two doesn't equal out. I'll play devil advocate with it. The 1 year of marriage that has the certificate, yeah, probably couldn't even hold it for the 20 years. Why? Because they found a way to circumvent the system, to operate within the system without committing in. So they do have an escape route. They don't have to operate in that system. So it's not. The only thing I'm saying is not the same. It can't be. It's not the same for one or the other. I can't walk in with my 1 year marriage certificate down, right, and tell them that they're wrong. I'm just saying it's just not the same. We're not the same. And we can't act like it is. It's just not. I'm sorry. Seems like you're a little aggravated about that.
Don't apologize.
Cheers.
We have a difference of opinion.
I know.
I agree to disagree. It's fine.
Hey, listen, I know a lot of married couples probably watching this right now, and I would love to hear from y'all. Drop your comments. If you agree or you disagree, I'm okay with that too. I'm just, we got to deal with facts a lot, and that's why I do. I try to look at the facts. We can go off of like opinions and emotions and all that. Like, honestly, it's not about my opinion or emotion. I'm just looking at it for me in the facts of what it is. If you have a couple, and the whole thing was, and then kind of back up a little bit. The whole thing was, should a woman take a man's name when they get married? And so that's how this whole thing came across. But for me, it just shows a level of commitment and unity when you take the name. It is saying, hey, yep, I want to be with you, you want to be with me. If you're working in that system that you're talking about, where I actually go down and get the certificate, then you definitely keep your own last name. And that's not even a conversation to have. You can't take his name if you wanted to, unless you change it downtown anyway.
I gave my opinion, so I'm good.
It can't be in the conversation.
What do you want me to say?
It can't be in the conversation.
It is. I said everything I wanted to say.
Oh gosh. Hey, I'm just saying, I didn't want it to be, I don't want to be one-sided.
It was one-sided because it became your opinion versus my opinion, and it was one-sided because you're saying this is what it is because of this and because of the facts and this little cute box. And that's fine if that's what you believe, and that's cool. I gave my opinion. I don't think you need a name or a ring or all these cute little checks in the box to demonstrate like that you love somebody or you care about somebody. And my personal opinion is I'm glad to have somebody who wants to hang in there for 20 years without the obligation to do so. Because if you're there for 20 years willingly because you want to be and not because you have a piece of paper that says you have to be, says a lot more to me than saying I'm going to stay committed to this person because I'm supposed to be, because I have a paper that says I have to be.
You don't have to be with a lot of sense either. You don't have to be. It's still a choice though.
Okay.
Still a choice. You can leave, it's just gonna be a little bit more difficult. That's all I was saying. Like the ones that are there without the paper for 20 years. If things don't work out, you'll change. I'm not saying things had to go awry or bad. It's just that you decided this is not what I want anymore. You can just completely separate without having all that extra messy stuff in the middle. That's all I'm saying. Like you don't have to get anybody else involved in your affairs if that's the case. But the ones that did go ahead and get the license and went through the whole traditional way of getting married, they just have a little bit more to deal with if they decide to split. Even if it's a mutual thing, they have to do a little bit more work. That's all. I'm feeling all this heat coming from over here. I wish you had like a couple that did both, like the actual married couple that went and got the license, and we might have to do that show and bring the ones that's been in here for like mad years.
Thank you for watching.
Listen, I knew this was going to be a really, really great topic to have today and talk about. And normally, if you watch the show, Amanda and I, we actually are on the same like wavelength when it comes to conversation most of the time. But I knew this one in particular was going to like have a separate of opinions and a difference of opinion, and I'm glad it did because she made some really great points. I'm not gonna lie, some really great points, but it is what it is. Thank you. It speaks value. All right, y'all. Make sure y'all tune in. We are actually coming to the end of the show. Tune in every Thursday. Make sure you go ahead and like and subscribe right there, right down here at the bottom. On Instagram at The Morning Coffee Show, on Facebook at The Morning Coffee, and on YouTube right here, The Morning Coffee Show. You can catch me on Instagram at P Hakeem, and
I think mine says unmatched_unapologetic.
Boom! You remember, it's right there. It's not right, it's right there, but
and there's zeros in there, and it's really clever. So yeah, do that.
That's right. There's other characters in there. It is what it is. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for watching, and catch y'all next time.